Hey, how's it going, everybody? I so I had a whole list of things I wanted to talk to y'all about, and I'm gonna scrap all that. Um, so I was doing a bunch of inspections. Obviously, we're getting a tremendous amount of claims in from not only Hurricane Ida that hit Louisiana, but now also receiving a bunch of claims from Hurricane Nicholas that hit the Texas coast. It didn't have a lot of effect here in Houston. We got some rain, we got a little bit of wind. It wasn't that big of a deal. But once you go south, it gets pretty bad. You start going down there and you're seeing shingles ripped off roofs. You're seeing sheds bent in half, completely lifted off and thrown across the street. So I was out doing these inspections, and on my way back, I started to think about my dad. And so I've decided I'm going to scrap everything that I was doing and talk about my father. Um, so I'm just going to tell y'all right now, if you don't want to hear about my dad, y'all can tune out right now. But I think everybody knows here how much I like to actually talk about my father and how much I miss him. So, and it helps a lot because I miss him a lot. So obviously doing what I do, my father started our business 43 years ago. I started working for him pretty much like almost full time when I was 14. When I wasn't skating, when I wasn't at school, when I wasn't busting my ass on our ranch, I went to work with my dad. And so that was pretty much all like school holidays. And if I was sick, I would never actually stay home when I was sick. I would actually go to work with my dad, and I would lay on the floor in his office. I remember we had this office over in an area. It's called Greens Point. We lovingly refer to it here in Houston as Guns Point. But we had an office over there, and I remember my father had one of those big cabinet style televisions where it's a huge wooden cabinet, with the curved glass. These motherfuckers are super heavy, with the knobs on it. And I remember I would lay on the floor. He had this in his office, and I would lay on the floor, and we always had blankets at the office for me and pillows because I was up there so much. And I would lay there and watch TV shows. And I actually remember watching like original Jerry Springers, stuff like that. Oprah used to come on all the time. We would watch that. Price is Right. We always watch that. And then every time like the soap operas would come on, we would turn the channel. But it's not like we didn't have cable back then. And so I would always lay on the floor and watch TV on the days I was sick. And then if he was going to have a meeting, I would have to get up and leave, and I would walk in, or I'd go into another room. I'd go into the warehouse and build something or break something and do all kinds of crazy shit. And just made me think about this. At the same office, we had a crane in the warehouse. And at some point, one of my dad's carpenters had actually taken out the back seat of his truck. I don't know if you guys, remember. It might have even been the front seat. I'm not sure, but it was a full bench seat. It was solid. And somebody had taken it out of their truck and they put it in the warehouse. And I got the bright ideas. I wanted to go up to the top in the crane, but I wanted to be able to sit down. Of course, my instant thought is comfort. I'm not thinking, so what I start doing is, instead of just trying to get up and down on this crane, which, it's like a crane that could move back and forth on the track, but it had buttons and you could raise the hook up and down. So there was like a cable with the big yellow box and you push the button for up and down. Well, I couldn't just, wouldn't make it just as simple as going up and down on this thing. I wanted to make it comfortable. And so I actually found like 40 feet of chain, and I moved this. And keep in mind, I'm like, I don't know, I'm probably 12, not 12, God no. I was probably 8 years old when I started this. And it was something around that time. Anyway, I took the bench truck seat over there, and I wrapped chains around the bottom of them, and I brought the chains up to the center, and I hooked the chains onto the hook. and I could literally sit in this fucking truck seat, this truck bench seat, and raise and lower myself up and down on this fucking crane. And my dad thought it was the funniest thing. I mean, it's some ingenuity. I remember he would come out there and he would fucking yell at me. Because like I'm screaming in the warehouse. He's wanting to know why I'm screaming. And I dropped the handle, like the control panel. I'd fucking dropped it. And so it's dangling from the bottom and I can't reach it. And so I'm I'm like 30 feet in the air and I'm fucking screaming. And my dad, of course, he's inside having meetings and stuff. And he wants to know why I'm outside fucking screaming. So anyway, he had to like lower me down and stuff. And then, at this particular place, we'd also I had a friend of mine, a guy named Ryan Horgan, a guy I grew up skating with and everything. And he, I tricked him one time to, I got him to hook his belt onto this hook, and it's like a hook, right? That's, so it hooks up, but it's got this little latch. So when you hook it, like it won't, nothing will slide out. So it happened so fast. I got him. I literally hooked it onto the front of his belt, and it latched in place, and he couldn't get it off. And so I pushed the up button, and I raised him all the way to the fucking top. With his fucking belt and his pants. He's wearing these blue jeans. And it's the funniest goddamn thing because it's like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures had just come out and all this other stuff. And Death, he's, talking about getting a Melvin. And it's not a wedgie, it's a Melvin because you're pulling it up from the front. And so I gave him literally the worst fucking Melvin in the world. And then we used to, in the same place, there was this huge mezzanine deck with a storage down below where they used to take contents when people would have a fire in their house. There was not storage, it was what's called an ozone room. And they would take everything and put it inside here. If there was a fire inside the house and it was all smoky, they'd put it inside this room and they'd turn on a machine, an ozone machine. It would kind of deodorize it. So on top of it, they had built a mezzanine deck for storage for just supplies and shit. And they used to keep furniture pads, packing blankets up there, but also bubble wrap and shit like that. So I remember, and it's 10 feet, from the ground to the deck, it's 10 feet. And it was fucking insane because I used to go in there and I would throw 50 blankets, 100 blankets off the fucking top of this thing and throw them on the ground. And then I would take massive rolls of bubble wrap. And I'm not talking about the little bitty things that you get a package and you got the little shit and you twist it like this. I'm talking about the bubble wrap that has the huge fucking bubbles, the 1-inch bubbles. And these rolls are 4 and 5 feet tall or 3 or, 2 feet wide. Some of them are 2 feet wide. Some of them are 4 feet tall. And they're 500 feet long. And I'd unroll the whole goddamn thing and I'd throw it down there just so I could jump off of the top of this fucking deck. I would jump literally 10 feet off the ground onto this fucking pile of blankets and bubble wrap. And my dad would come out and he would lose his fucking mind because I'm literally just destroying it. This is the break part where I'm literally just fucking destroying things. And I would just remember doing this shit all the fucking time. And it was so much fun. Because then we would, I just remember doing so much crazy shit when I was younger. And then we ended up moving offices and we got God, it was unbelievable. My father got this massive big screen TV just for his office. Went from the cabinet style TV that's, maybe 25 inches across, whatever, to getting this 65 or 70 inch, big screen TV, projection style fucking TV. And he puts it in the office. And we would go up to the office on wrestling events. When wrestling pay-per-views were still a big thing, we would go to the office on Saturday and my dad, we would spend the whole day there working. He would be working and I'd be fucking around and we would watch the pay-per-views that night on Saturday nights whenever they were there. And I remember vividly I don't know, one weekend we would like computers were just becoming like a major thing. So I was probably 10 or 12 years old, and I wanted to learn how to type. And I remember going up to my father. We went to, it was Office Max at the time, and we ended up going there, and I found this Mavis Beacons typing tutor. And my father bought it for me, and on his computer, he used to do everything by hand. He didn't really, even up to the time he passed away, he wasn't really computer friendly. I always thought of my dad as as like a caveman or a monkey, like that would just get frustrated and just start using his fucking hands and just pounding on the keyboard and everything. Because on top of the fact that he had these massive fucking hands, these big old sausage fingers, he was hairy as hell. So he looked like a goddamn ape when he would just start just slamming on the fucking keyboard. So when we, a long time ago, he did everything by hand. I mean, just stacks upon stacks of yellow notepads. So he had a computer in his office, but he never really used it. So while we're sitting there on a Saturday, I remember in 4 hours, I taught myself how to type using Mavis Beacon's typing tutor. On that system. Like I said, I was probably somewhere around 10 or 12 years old. I just had to have been about that age. And just remember spending the Saturdays up there with my dad. And then, like I said, we would watch the wrestling events. Sometimes we would extend it out to some of the employees, because usually it was just a thing for my dad and I. We would just go up there together, the two of us, and sometimes we'd extend it out. There was a guy that worked for my dad, a guy named Mitch Duke. Mitch Duke is a fucking character. Mitch was like 6'4", huge fucking barrel chest. This massive. I mean, he's a big dude. He was I don't know. He was a lineman of some kind in college. Anyway, so Mitch is actually from Missouri, and he's a huge Kansas City Chiefs fan. So I know he was happy last year. But anyway, Mitch was big into wrestling, and Mitch only had daughters, so he would come out there and hang out with my dad and I. He called me Champ. That's always what he referred to me as, was Champ, because of speed skating. So he thought it was the greatest fucking thing in the world, that I was a world champion. So he always called me Champ. Anyway, Mitch would come up there and hang out with us, and Mitch was OCD. But Mitch was one of these guys that just like, it was funny because like my dad and me, he really liked to decorate. And so his office, he was the general manager there, and so my dad gave him a big office and built a bunch of shelves in there for him. And Mitch it was covered in every fucking thing you could imagine. Mitch looked like a cowboy. Like, he had glasses on, but he had this huge fucking Wyatt Earp style, like mustache kind of thing that came down. Well, maybe not. I don't know. Is Wyatt Earp? No, Wyatt Earp was just a regular mustache. Anyway, whoever the fuck had that whole thing that comes down like here, Mitch had that, and anyway, it was the greatest. Mitch was a really good guy. So my dad, anyway, Mitch would go in and he'd decorate his office, and he had all this shit on his shelves. Huge Kansas City Chiefs fan, and so there's shit everywhere. And so to fuck with him, Mitch was, again, super OCD. He knew where everything was. And just to fuck with him, my dad would go into his office when he wasn't there, and he would just take one thing and move it about like a quarter of an inch. Like, he would just turn it. Like, he would just turn something. And you're talking about shelves that probably had 200 or 300 items on them. It's a bunch of little shit. And Mitch would lose his fucking mind. The very next day, you would hear Mitch come in screaming and yelling because he knew someone had been in his office. And so after this happening so many times, and of course my dad would tell me about it, and after this happened so many times, Mitch actually put a keypad door lock on his door. And of course, my dad owning the company, he gave my father the keypad, the number. And so my dad waited a little while, but then would do it again. like would go back and do that shit again. And it was, and finally, obviously Mitch knew who it was, but it was the funniest fucking thing because it would happen. And my dad would just loved to fuck with the guy. They were great friends, and it was kind of funny. My dad, Mitch, had a GMC, a white GMC diesel, like 3500 long bed, 4-door. My dad had a white Chevrolet diesel dually long bed, and Mitch called his, I think he called her Bessie, or is either Bessie or Betsy was what he called his truck. But for every holiday, Mitch would go buy wreaths. Well, for like Christmas, he would buy wreaths for the grills of his truck and my dad's truck. And for Thanksgiving, he would buy Thanksgiving wreath for the grill of his truck and my dad's truck. St. Patrick's Day, shit like that. So it was always really neat. They were really close, and it was really neat. And I remember Mitch just being devastated. It was 2002, so I was 2001. So I was 19 at the time, and Tropical Storm Allison hit Houston, and rained for like 4 days straight and just flooded every fucking thing. Kind of like what Harvey did in 2017. But our office again was there in Guns Point, right on the bayou at this point, because there's a place that Greens Bayou runs through Greens Point. So our office, we had like 70 or 80,000 square feet of office warehouse space, and it was right there next to the bayou. And of course, the bayou came like 8 feet out of its banks. And so when that happened, our office flooded. And literally, I mean, it destroyed all of our equipment. It destroyed, customers' contents. It destroyed my dad's office. It destroyed Mitch's office. And that really sucked. That sucked a lot, seeing a lot of their stuff, because they'd been in there for a couple years, this office at this point, and it fucked up a lot of stuff. Funny thing though, for like 6 months, they had to use temporary office containers, office trailers that were parked out front. And my dad, there was a cat. My dad was so fucking addicted to animals. Like, he just loved animals. And so this cat, one of these cats, I forget the cat's name, but there was a cat. I think she was a little white cat, a little white thing. Mimi, I think might have been her name's what he ended up naming her. But anyway, he found this fucking cat under the container. She was like hiding under the container for like a week, and she ended up coming out. He ended up feeding her, ended up taking her home. And, next thing you know, we got, this cat. And then they got another one. They found another one at the house from a different flood. The cat was hiding in the fucking tree, like in this big magnolia tree that was right at the end of the deck. And so my dad would take the cat. He would just take these fucking cats. And then they had, I think that was a black one. And then had another cat that gave birth out on the property and had like a little Maine Coon. And they thought it was a girl. So they called this cat Mia. And then one day, Mia turns into a Mike. His fucking balls fall out and everything. And it's a big old fucking cat. It's huge. So I had called the cat Bob. I'd been calling him Bob because it looked like a bobcat. I mean, the cat was that big, and the way his hair was and the fur on his ears and everything. So I just kept calling this fucking cat Bob, and they continued to call this cat Mia. And it was a boy. So maybe, emotional damage to that poor thing. But anyway, I was thinking about a lot of this stuff today. I was driving around because this is what my dad did. And he loved it. Like, he loved what we do so much, the way I love it. Obviously it provides an income for our, and it takes care of our family and a lot of employees and everything. But he loved helping people. Like, he loved going out the way I do. That's where I learned it from, was you go somewhere and you see it completely destroyed, and you're working with these people, and they're, when they're stressed out and they're tired and all their shit's fucked up, and you help them and you put it back together and they're happy. And, it's like, you get to see the whole transition of it. And my dad just loved it. And I will say this, that, my father and I, over the past like 2-3 years, had started to put some things in motion at the company. And my father, he lived long enough to see it start. Like, we were able to finally execute some of the things at the office that he and I had been working on. A lot of him. My time was still out spent running around, trying to get the jobs done and everything. And my father started kind of the process of where we're at now. But he saw the beginning of it, where we went from, we would do like 10 to 15 large commercial jobs, but we'd have to travel a lot. We'd have to do a lot of traveling around the country, and we do these really large jobs, to what we were trying to transition the company into what we do now. So we don't have to travel as much or nearly as far. And our clients are, our insurance clients are just feeding this business this every single day. And so he'd kind of seen it, where we went from, just doing, like I said, 10 to 15 large jobs a year, to we're getting, sometimes 3, sometimes 4 jobs a week. And now, I'll be honest, it's kind of a slow day for us if we don't get 4 jobs a day. That's kind of like a slow, it's super slow if we only get like 4 or 5 jobs a week. I mean, at the pace, I got a notification the other day, I think on Tuesday, from one insurance carrier in Louisiana. We had 193 files, and then, more from another. So I think we've gotten like 350 to 400 files out in Louisiana. I got, just from Nicholas, we've already gotten a couple dozen. So it's kind of crazy, and I know my father would love seeing that, because we literally, not just quadrupled the business, but like tenfold, 12-fold the business. And my father would just be through the fucking roof about it, just because he loved it so much, and he just loved the hustle and the adrenaline rush of the jobs coming in, and you got to get out there to get shit taken care of, and you got people taken care. You got a tree on a building, you got to get it cut up and taken off. You got to put tarps on, you got to cover windows, you got to get drying equipment in there and tearing bad shit out, and and trying at the same time. You're helping the customer, and you're walking them through the process, and you're holding their hand, and you're making them feel better about everything, while we're also like tearing their shit apart. So that's what had me thinking about it today. And I think about that a lot. Obviously, during the freeze, he died. My father passed away on February 19th, and the freeze occurred on February 16th. And, we did like 300 projects from the freeze. So I guess if you think about it, we went from doing 10 to 15 large projects a year, to this year we'll have, I think I ran a report yesterday, and it was just over 700. So whatever the fuck the math is. I'm Jewish. I'm good with money, but math is maybe right now my strong suit. So I'm gonna have to work on my gazentas. That's a lot. I'm gonna have to count. I probably have to use my fucking toes, but. Anyway, just had me thinking about my dad and how happy he would be. Had me thinking about, hopefully he's proud of what I'm doing. Doing my best to. I'll say this. It used to really piss me off. Used to really piss me off. My dad would talk about the legacy of the company, and that would really fucking drive me nuts. I'm not going to go into detail about that right now, but he would talk about the legacy of the company, and what he's doing is building a legacy. And we would get into fights about this, and like now more than ever, like I want to continue on everything as a legacy, as an homage to my father. I could change every goddamn thing out there. I could do everything I wanted with it, and I want to keep it the same as possible. So it's like it's like like a sign of respect to my father, and a kind of a memorial. The best memorial that I can give him is just living a good life and taking care of my mom and you know, doing good at the business. I think that would please him more than anything. So let's think about that today. And it was weird. Then it was really weird. I had this thought. So I'm listening to this book. And I apologize. Let me, you know what? Here, I got my phone right here. Here. Because it's going to bother me not to give you guys the right information. So I'm going to tell you what the name of this book is. Okay. The name of the book is A Hunter-Gatherer's Guide to the 21st Century, Evolution and the Challenges of Modern Life by Heather Heying. I hope I said her name right. Heather Heying and Brett Weinstein. Now, some of y'all might recognize Brett Weinstein's name he's a regular guest on Joe Rogan, the Joe Rogan Show. Heather's actually his wife. They are both evolutionary biologists. They were professors, but they've traveled the world and done a bunch of stuff. So anyway, they're writing this book about the biological evolution. I'll get into it later. Like, there was a really cool episode or chapter, if you will. It is a book, so there's chapters. That was a good one. They're talking about the large intestine and the appendix and its purpose in your body and its evolution and why it's there and things like that. And I'll get into that stuff a little bit later. But on one of the chapters they're talking about is they talk about, and again, they try to tie a lot of their experiences in this book. I really recommend it. It's really cool. I listened to almost I'd say about 6 hours of it today because of driving. But there was this part in the book where they're talking about death, and they're talking about how certain societies observe death, and how in our modern, like where we're at today, like there's not time spent with the dead. Like in when you would have, you're talking about 1,000 years ago to, whatever, it's kind of like the president lying in state, how there's like a tour and they bring them in and people can come by and observe and things like that. That used to be a normal occurrence for regular everyday people, warriors, large, family members, things like that. They would do this, and we don't do that today. And so they were talking about this, and they were talking about one, I guess, community in general, one group of people in general, and what they actually do every year is and I don't want to fuck too much up because I'm going to slaughter what the story is, but basically they uninter the remains, the bones of their past descendants, and they take them out and they rewrap them and everything. It's not like they do anything with the bones. They kind of rewrap them in new cloth, things like that, and then they talk to them. They spend time with them. They do like a huge feast and all this other stuff, but the community spends time with their elders, if you will, and they tell stories about the people, and they tell stories to the people. They tell them about, who's gotten married recently, who's had kids. They talk about the farming and the seasonal rains and recent, major events. And I guess the only thing they don't talk to them about is who recently died, because I guess they said the assumption is that they already know because they've already joined them. So they do this and they spend time with the dead. And it had me thinking about how much time I actually spent with my father after he passed away. I was the first one into the hospital room after we'd gotten the call. And So I got to spend about 30 minutes with him by myself, just holding his hand. Just sitting there holding his hand and I guess talking to him in my head, if you will. It didn't, I felt weird kind of maybe verbalizing certain things. So I just sat there and kind of talked to him in my head and, I guess kind of imagined he heard it and was listening. Why? I guess alive we don't have like telepathic abilities, but we believe that there's something like that with the dead. So I just kind of imagined I was talking to him in my mind, and so I got to spend about 30 minutes with him, and then the family showed up, and they spent about an hour with him while I was there, kind of watching over him, and then when everybody left, I spent another about 20 minutes with him, and just really got to just enjoy him, for a little while longer. Just get to look at him. Observe his his cheeks and his mustache. He loved his mustache. He was so happy about this mustache, and he would fuck it up all the time. He didn't know how to trim it properly sometimes, and so sometimes it would be lopsided. But it wasn't here. He did a good job. He had trimmed up his mustache, but he was all white, and he used to dye his hair. My father's the reason I won't dye anything. I'll go completely gray, but he used to dye his hair and he would dye his beard for the longest time. And he finally stopped dyeing it. And when he would let it grow just a little bit, it would be so fucking white. I mean, he looked like Santa Claus. And, so anyway, he had, about a week prior to his passing, he had actually shaved. And, so he had just, like 4 or 5, 5-day-old hair on his face, but he had his mustache and was solid white. And so just sitting there looking at him and spending those last kind of like 20 minutes. And then my sister came into town and we ended up going to do kind of like at the funeral home, kind of like a viewing for her. And since we were having him cremated, there was no embalming or anything. I will say, unfortunately, which it really bothered me because they didn't warn us that they had done this, which I understand why they did it. They actually had glued his lip shut, because, your body starts decomposing. The moment you die, you start decomposing. And when organs decompose, they create gas. And so that's why they keep the dead inside refrigeration, because it helps slow that down. So they had glued his lips shut, and they'd put like, I don't know if they'd put like what it was. It was like maybe some paper up his nostrils with like maybe some Vaseline. So the odor, and that's all it was, is so that odor from inside wasn't kind of escaping out. But it was kind of fucked up. They didn't warn us that they had done it. But we understood. I understood. And so we got to spend like another 45 minutes with him. Of course, that was the first time my sister got to see him, and that was the only time she got to see him. And so we, again, I was the first one in, last one out, just spending time with him. And then, when it came time to have him cremated, I was actually present for his cremation. I went there, and maybe I'll describe it another time. I don't feel like getting into all that, but I was there when he was cremated. I actually turned the key. I will say that they kind of put you in a room where there is like a glass window, and it's kind of a nondescript kind of warehouse kind of place. And my father was laying on a table, kind of a bed of rollers. And in the room, I can see him through the glass. He's maybe like 20 feet away from me, something like that. I'm looking at him through the glass. And they gave me as much time as I wanted with him to just sit there and look at him and kind of talk to him. And then to the right of the window, there's a little key in the wall. Kind of reminded me like when you're in school, like they have little keys for like opening, closing partitions and stuff like that. It's kind of what it was like. It was like a spring-loaded key, and then I turned it, and then the machine kicks on, flames. You kind of see the reflection of the flames, and then like almost like it's not, again, it's a bed of rollers, and there's a plate, if you will, that's like on a pulley or a ram, and it just kind of moves them into the machine, and a door closes, and that's it. And so the story was being told today while I was listening to this book, and it got me thinking about all the time I actually spent with my father, and I did it instinctively. I did it because obviously I love my father, and I think he is a great man. He's done so many amazing things, and I got to spend as much possible time with him because I did miss 4 years of his life because I was a fucking idiot, and then I missed realistically pretty much the last 6 weeks of his life because I didn't go on a vacation with them, which is where he ended up getting sick, and then he spent January 1 through the date of his death, February 19th, in the actual hospital. So 6 weeks in the hospital. So I missed a lot of my father's life, and so I felt it necessary to spend as much time as much as that time as possible with him. I think I owed it to him because he had done so much for me. Even though there was times he wasn't there, but he was there because he's paying for a lot of the shit. Like when I was a kid and I'm traveling, he's paying for it. So he's not physically there, but he's there because he's providing everything that gave me the ability to do it. So it had me thinking about that today because in this book. Anyway, I highly recommend you guys reading the book. There's probably a part in there if you guys have, you got family members and friends and things like that. It'll have you thinking about a bunch of stuff. Like the last chapter that I'm on right now is well, not. It was a chat. It's in there, but it's talking about that there's truly only, biologically, there's only two sexes, male, female. Gender is something different. Gender identification is something different, but actual sexes, there's only male, female. So biologically, so I really like it. Anyway, Harvey Weinstein is not Harvey Weinstein. Eric Weinstein, and his wife Heather, or I should say Heather and her husband. Anyway, great book. I highly recommend it. You guys should check it out. But anyway, so guys, that's all I got. Like I said, I just wanted to talk about my dad. Of course, I could go on. The stories I could tell and the shit that we would get into. Oh, it's fucking out there. But anyway, for another show. So, as always, guys, I want to say thank you. Y'all have been amazing. I really appreciate everything. Constantly getting great, amazing messages from people, really inspirational stuff, really, heartfelt and appreciated stuff. I really appreciate everybody. You guys are always amazing, and I'm so grateful. I'm grateful because look, I know in life, hey, I could probably cause enough drama in my life, and I'm very grateful that as far as like my online, social media related stuff, I don't experience a lot of that, and I'm appreciative for that. That the people that everybody messages me and is very supportive and very caring, and just the messages of, like I said, always just people just checking in to say how you doing. I'm telling you, that's a great fucking feeling, man, to get that from somebody. And so I highly recommend that if you got somebody on your mind and you're just thinking about somebody, I highly recommend you just send them a quick message. I don't give a fuck if it's on Instagram or Messenger or text or whatever. Send an email and just tell somebody you're thinking about them. I mean, that's a pretty cool fucking feeling sometimes to get those things. Except for if it's from somebody, if you're getting a message from somebody you don't want to fucking hear from. I will say my girlfriend, she's her ex, from months ago, he's not managing to stop. So that'll be a whole other fucking thing if it doesn't end. But reach out to the people you love and tell them you're thinking about them. If they tell you to fucking leave you alone, leave them alone. But if they show appreciation for your communication, continue to do it, because it does mean a lot to people. I can tell you, if it's wanted and it's it's appreciated communication, I can tell you that the people like hearing from you. So I will say, I thank you. I thank everybody for all the stuff you guys do for me. I really appreciate it, and I just hope you guys have an amazing day, because my day was pretty good. And my day will be even better, because every day is great, right? So thank y'all so much. I appreciate it. And I will talk to y'all very, very soon.